Terrence Williams had been a school counselor for 23 years and knew the difference between a lazy teenager and a child carrying the weight of a family on his shoulders, which is why, when 14-year-old Deshaun Carter fell asleep in first period every single day, not the sleep of a kid up late playing video games, but the bone-deep exhaustion of someone who had been getting his 7-year-old twin sisters ready for school, working until midnight on his own homework, and running a household while his mother worked 2 jobs, Terrence made a phone call that would change everything. What happened after Marcus Thompson from the Black Knights MC showed up to mentor a boy who had forgotten how to be a child, after the club connected the family with resources that eased an impossible burden, and after Deshaun grew into a social worker who now catches other falling children, proved that sometimes all it takes is one person noticing and one phone call to break a cycle of exhaustion that no child should ever have to carry alone. Terrence Williams had been a school counselor for 23 years, and he had learned to recognize the signs of a child carrying too much weight. He was 57 years old, a black man who had grown up in this same neighborhood, gone off to college, and come back to serve the community that raised him. He had seen generations of kids pass through these halls, had watched some of them rise and some of them fall, and had dedicated his life to catching the ones who were slipping through the cracks. Deshaun Carter was slipping. The boy was 14 years old, a freshman who had shown promise at the start of the year. Good grades in middle school. Teachers who spoke highly of his intelligence and work ethic. A kid who should have been thriving in high school. Instead, he was falling asleep in first period every single day. Terrence had been tracking it for weeks. The reports from teachers painted a consistent picture. Deshaun would arrive on time, sit in his seat, and be unconscious within 15 minutes. Not the lazy sleep of a teenager who stayed up too late playing video games. This was the deep, exhausted sleep of someone who was not getting rest at night. His grades were plummeting. His teachers were frustrated. The assistant principal was talking about disciplinary action. But Terrence knew that punishment was not what this boy needed. He needed someone to find out what was happening at home. He called Deshaun into his office on a Tuesday morning. Deshaun sat across from Terrence, with the wary look of a kid who expected to be in trouble. He was small for 14, thin in a way that suggested he was not eating enough, with dark circles under his eyes that made him look older than his years. He sat with his shoulders hunched, his hands folded in his lap, waiting for whatever lecture was coming. Terrence did not lecture. He just asked Deshaun how he was doing. Fine. The word came out flat, automatic. The response of someone who had learned that adults did not really want to know. Terrence tried again. He said he had noticed Deshaun was tired, said he was not in trouble, said he just wanted to understand what was going on so he could help. Deshaun was quiet for a long time. Terrence could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Trust or deflect, tell the truth, or keep carrying the weight alone. Finally, the boy started talking. His mother worked 2 jobs, days at the hospital as a nursing assistant, nights at a warehouse doing fulfillment. She left at 6 in the morning and did not get home until after midnight. Sometimes she did not come home at all, just grabbed a few hours of sleep in her car between shifts. Deshaun had 2 younger sisters, twins, 7 years old, in 2nd grade. When their mother was working, Deshaun was in charge. He got them up in the morning, made them breakfast, walked them to school. He picked them up in the afternoon, helped with homework, made dinner, gave them baths, put them to bed. By the time the twins were asleep, it was usually 10 or 11 at night. That was when Deshaun could finally start his own homework. He worked until 1 or 2 in the morning, grabbed a few hours of sleep, and started the whole cycle over again. He had been doing this for 2 years, ever since his father left. Terrence listened to all of this with a growing ache in his chest. This was not a lazy teenager. This was a child who was running a household, raising his sisters, keeping his family afloat while his mother worked herself to exhaustion just to keep the lights on. He asked Deshaun what he needed. Deshaun looked at him like no one had ever asked that question before. After a long pause, he said he needed sleep. He needed help. He needed someone to see what he was carrying and not make it worse. Terrence told him he saw, and he was going to do something about it. Hit subscribe if you believe that every child deserves to be a child. Comment where you're watching from, and share this with someone who needs to know that help exists for families carrying impossible burdens. Terrence made a phone call that afternoon. His cousin Marcus rode with the Black Knights MC, a club that had been doing community work in this neighborhood for decades. They ran after-school programs, mentored kids, helped families in crisis. If anyone could help Deshaun's family, it was them. Marcus listened to the situation and said he would bring it to the club. Said they had resources for exactly this kind of thing. Said he would be in touch within a day or two. True to his word, Marcus called back the next evening. The club wanted to help. They had a plan. First, they would connect with Deshaun's mother carefully, without making her feel judged or ashamed. Marcus knew how proud working mothers could be, how hard it was to admit you needed help. They would approach her with respect, offer assistance as a hand up rather than a handout. Second, they would get the family connected with resources, food assistance, childcare programs, utility assistance, anything that could ease the financial pressure that was forcing this woman to work herself to death. Third, they would provide direct support for Deshaun, mentorship, homework help, a chance to be a kid instead of a parent. Marcus himself would take the boy under his wing, show him what healthy manhood looked like, give him a break from carrying the world on his shoulders. Terrence said that sounded like exactly what this family needed. Marcus said the Black Knights did not do things halfway. When they committed to helping a family, they committed completely. Marcus Thompson showed up at Deshaun's school on Friday afternoon. He was 46 years old, 6'2", with the kind of solid build that came from years of construction work. He had been riding with the Black Knights for 18 years, had helped build their youth mentorship program from the ground up, and had personally mentored over 50 young men from this neighborhood. He knew what it was like to grow up carrying weight that no child should carry. His own father had been absent, his mother had worked multiple jobs, and Marcus had spent his teenage years raising his younger brothers while trying to stay in school. He had made it through, but just barely. He wanted to make sure kids like Deshaun had more support than he had. Terrence introduced them in his office. Deshaun was suspicious at first, the way he was suspicious of all adults who claimed they wanted to help. But something about Marcus was different. Maybe it was the way he talked, direct and honest without being condescending. Maybe it was the way he listened, like Deshaun's words actually mattered. Maybe it was simply the presence of a black man who looked like he could be Deshaun's father or uncle, someone who understood without having to be told. Marcus did not make promises he could not keep. He just told Deshaun that he had been where Deshaun was, that he knew what it was like to be 14 and exhausted and trying to hold everything together, that he was not here to judge or lecture or make things harder. He was here to help, if Deshaun would let him. Deshaun said he would think about it, but Terrence could see something in the boy's eyes that had not been there before. Hope. If you're enjoying this story, hit that hype button right now. It's free, takes a second, and helps this video reach more people who need to see it. Now back to the story. Marcus met Deshaun's mother, Tanya, the following Saturday. He came to their apartment with 2 other members of the Black Knights, bringing groceries and a respectful demeanor. They did not barge in or take over. They knocked politely, introduced themselves, explained that Terrence Williams had asked them to check in on the family. Tanya was wary at first. She was 34 years old, exhausted in ways that went beyond physical, and she had learned to be suspicious of people who showed up offering help. In her experience, help usually came with strings attached or judgment that made you feel worse than before. But Marcus understood that. He sat at her kitchen table, accepted the glass of water she offered, and spoke to her like an equal. He told her about his own mother, who had worked 3 jobs to keep her sons fed. He told her about the Black Knights, what they did, why they did it. He told her that asking for help was not weakness, it was wisdom. Tanya broke down crying halfway through the conversation. She said she had been trying so hard, working every hour she could find, barely sleeping, barely eating, just trying to keep her children housed and fed. She knew what she was asking of Deshawn, knew it was too much, but she did not know what else to do. Marcus told her that was why they were here, to help her find another way. Over the next few weeks, the Black Knights connected Tanya with resources she did not know existed. Food assistance that cut her grocery bill in half. A utility assistance program that caught her up on back payments. A child care cooperative at a local church that provided free after-school care for the twins 3 days a week. Most importantly, they helped her restructure her work schedule. Marcus knew people. A brother in the club ran a janitorial company and needed reliable workers. The hours were better than the warehouse, the pay was similar, and Tanya could be home by 10 most nights instead of after midnight. It was not a perfect solution. Life rarely offered those, but it was a start. Deshawn started coming to the Black Knights clubhouse on weekends. At first he was quiet, watchful, still waiting for the catch, but the brothers treated him like he belonged, gave him tasks that made him feel useful, asked his opinions like they actually valued what he thought. Marcus became his primary mentor, spending one-on-one time with him every week. They worked on homework together. They talked about life, about manhood, about what it meant to be strong without carrying burdens that were not yours to carry. Marcus taught him to change oil in a car, fix a leaky faucet, basic skills that every young man should know. But more than skills, Marcus gave Deshawn permission to be a kid. He took him to basketball games, introduced him to the other young men in the mentorship program, kids his own age, who understood what it was like to grow up too fast. He made sure Deshawn had time to play, to laugh, to be 14 instead of a substitute parent. The change was gradual but undeniable. Deshawn stopped falling asleep in first period. His grades started climbing back up. His teachers reported that he seemed more engaged, more present, more like the promising student they had seen at the start of the year. Terrence watched the transformation with quiet satisfaction. This was why he did this work, not for the easy cases, but for the ones like Deshawn, the kids who were drowning silently while everyone else walked past. He had made one phone call, and that call had changed a family's life. If Bike Diaries has become part of your week, consider joining the channel membership. Just a couple bucks a month keeps these stories coming. Links below. And hit that hype button if you haven't already. Now back to the story. Deshawn's sisters noticed the change too. Maya and Mia had grown up watching their brother take care of everything. He was the one who made breakfast, packed lunches, helped with homework. He was more parent than brother, and they had accepted that as normal because they did not know anything different. But now, Deshawn was different, less tired, more playful. He still helped take care of them, but he also wrestled with them on the living room floor, watched cartoons with them on Saturday mornings, acted like a big brother instead of a third parent. The twins started calling Marcus Uncle Marcus. He showed up at their apartment sometimes, brought them books and art supplies, played games with them while Deshaun did his homework. He became a fixture in their lives, another adult they could count on, another person who proved that help existed outside their small family unit. Tanya noticed the change most of all. Her son was becoming himself again, the smart, curious boy he had been before their father left, and everything fell apart. She had carried so much guilt about what she had asked him to do, what she had forced him to become. Seeing him laugh again, seeing him act like a child again, lifted a weight from her shoulders that she had not even realized she was carrying. She told Marcus once that she did not know how to thank him, that she did not have money or connections or anything to offer in return for what he had done. Marcus told her that watching Deshaun thrive was all the thanks he needed, that this was what the Black Knights existed for, that helping families like hers was not charity, it was community. 2 years later, Deshaun was a junior in high school with a 3.7 GPA. He was still involved with the Black Knights, still coming to the clubhouse on weekends, but now as a mentor himself. He helped with the younger kids in the program, the ones who reminded him of himself 2 years ago. He told them his story, showed them that things could get better, proved that asking for help was not weakness. Marcus had become family, not a replacement for the father who left, but something different, something chosen. He showed up for Deshaun's basketball games, helped him study for the SAT, talked to him about college like it was an expectation rather than a dream. Tanya had stabilized too. She was still working hard, but not killing herself anymore. The janitorial job had turned into a supervisor position. The child care cooperative had become a community of friends. She had even started dating again, carefully, someone Marcus had vetted because the Black Knights protected their own. The twins were 9 now, thriving in 4th grade, no longer watching their brother parent them. They had a childhood now, the kind of childhood that Deshaun had sacrificed so they could survive. Deshaun did not regret those years. They had made him who he was, but he was grateful that his sisters would not have to carry the same weight. Terrence Williams retired the year Deshaun graduated high school. After 27 years as a school counselor, he was ready to pass the torch. But before he left, he attended Deshaun's graduation, sitting in the audience with Marcus and Tanya and the twins, watching a boy he had once found asleep in first period walk across the stage to collect his diploma. Deshaun was headed to the state university in the fall, full scholarship, planning to study social work. He wanted to do what Terrence had done, what Marcus had done. He wanted to find the kids who were slipping through the cracks and catch them before they fell. After the ceremony, Deshaun found Terrence in the crowd. He hugged the older man, holding on longer than a typical teenage boy would, not caring who saw. He said thank you for noticing, for making that phone call, for not giving up on him when everyone else saw a problem, students sleeping through class. Terrence told him that noticing was his job, that Deshaun had done the hard part. All Terrence had done was connect him with people who could help. Deshaun shook his head. He said that was everything. The connection, the belief that help existed, the proof that he was not alone. Marcus joined them, throwing his arm around Deshaun's shoulders with the easy affection of family. He told Terrence that this was what it was all about. One phone call, one kid, one life changed. Terrence nodded. 27 years of phone calls and kids and lives changed. It never got old. It never stopped mattering. He told them both to keep going, keep noticing, keep connecting, keep catching the ones who were falling. That was how community survived, one kid at a time. Deshaun graduated from college 4 years later with a degree in social work. His first job was at a community center in the same neighborhood where he had grown up. He ran programs for kids who reminded him of himself: parentified children carrying adult burdens, exhausted teenagers trying to hold their families together. He told them his story about falling asleep in first period, about Terrence noticing, about Marcus showing up, about learning that asking for help was not weakness but wisdom. He became known in the neighborhood as someone who understood, someone who did not judge, someone who had been where they were and found a way through. Marcus was still in his life, still family, now a grandfather figure to Deshaun's own children when they came along years later. The Black Knights were still doing their work, still mentoring young men, still catching the ones who were slipping. And Terrence, retired now, but never truly done, volunteered at the community center once a week. He sat with kids in crisis, listened to their stories, helped connect them with resources. He was 73 years old and still making phone calls that changed lives. The cycle continued. The kid who was caught became the one who caught others. The help that was given was passed on, multiplied, spread through a community that refused to let its children fall alone. Thank you for watching this story about a boy falling asleep in first period, a counselor who noticed, and a biker who answered the call. It was inspired by the real children who carry adult responsibilities and the communities that step up to help them. If you know a child who seems exhausted, withdrawn, or burdened beyond their years, do not assume someone else is handling it. Teachers, counselors, neighbors, family friends, you might be the one who notices. You might be the one who makes the call. For families struggling with poverty, caregiving, or overwhelming responsibilities, help exists. Dial 211 to connect with local resources. Family resource centers, boys and girls clubs, food banks, and child care assistance programs are available in most communities. Subscribe to Bike Diaries. Hit that hype button to boost this video. And if you want to support what we do, the membership link is below. Share this with everyone who needs to remember that exhaustion in a child is often a sign of a family in crisis, and that one phone call can change a life. Deshaun Carter is 32 now. He runs the youth programs at the community center, mentors over 20 kids at any given time, and still volunteers with the Black Knights every weekend. His mother, Tanya, is a grandmother now, retired from the janitorial company where she worked for 15 years, finally able to rest. The twins, Maya and Mia, are 25, both college graduates, both living lives that were only possible because their brother carried them until help arrived. And somewhere in this city, right now, a counselor is noticing a child falling asleep in first period. A phone call is being made. A biker is answering. The cycle continues.